Hey YouTube, it's CJ with Roswell Astronomy here in Roswell, Georgia. And after 4 weeks of rain and clouds almost daily, we finally have a clear night. Of course, the temperature dropped. We were enjoying, I think the highest we had, I think it was last week, we were up to 78 degrees during the day and in the mid 60s at night. And it was pretty nice like that for several days, and leading up till this week, and then the temperature started going back down again with the cold front coming through, brought us a bunch of rain, and then another cold front just is right behind it. And so instead of having mid 60 degree evenings and low 60 degree evenings, we're actually supposed to drop down to 34 tonight, 34, 35 degrees. So that's Georgia for you. If you don't like the weather, just stick around. It'll change one way or the other. It's going to change. But the good news is I got the scope outside and I'm taking some pictures and finishing up some testing. So if you remember from the past video, I was telling you about how my buddy Dale and I have been having issues with doing Meridian flips with the G11. And we couldn't find a direct answer from anybody out on the forums or anything as far as like what were we doing wrong, why couldn't we get it to work. And we were going through different settings on the eastern limits and the western limits and the max go to, and playing with the fittings here, the settings here in SGP I should say, and neither one of us could get it to work. And so we did a lot of research, we did a lot of collaboration, we just kept going back and forth with each other over the past 4 or 5 weeks, maybe longer than that. And we think we found it, so we think we're dialed in. So a lot of what tonight was to get the settings put into the G11, get SGP up and running, and actually start photographing an object that would lead up into the meridian, and then have to cause a meridian flip. So this is what we're doing tonight. So what I did is I'm on M81. I'm on the Bode Galaxy here, and I got a huge dust boat. It wasn't there earlier, so I know it's not on the scope, but I put a CLS filter on because obviously I'm in the city, and of course it's not helping matters either. I got a full moon going on, but I'm aimed up towards the north, and of course the moon is back towards the south, but I'm getting a halo here, and I'm pretty sure it's a dust mode or something that's actually on that CLS filter. So it is what it is. I don't really care. I mean, if this is something I actually save this whole run, I'll just crop it, make it look really nice, because I like the way I'm sitting on it. I'm not edge on. It's like a nice flatness, like you normally would see. So I'm encouraged at least by that. But tonight's just all testing. Most of the deep sky objects are not really within my reach from the backyard here, so I'm not going to worry about them too much. But the whole goal of this evening was to make sure the Meridian flip was working and that we've got the correct settings. So I'm going to come back to that because my Meridian doesn't flip until 12:04 a.m. By the way, this is handy in SGP. It gives you the time to your peer flip and gives you the actual time, or how much time you have remaining, and then the time that'll actually do the flip. So, hey guys, okay, so we're back, and got a little over a minute left before the flip, and it's finishing up a exposure here. I got about 66 seconds. It looks like it's going to be right there. I'm going to open up the back door here so I can look outside, so I can see the mount, and hopefully this is all going to go smoothly as planned. So let's see what happens. Now I set the setting in here to flip at 15 minutes past meridian. So I'm assuming that when it gives you the time to pure flip that it's factoring that in, that it's not looking at time to meridian, but when it's actually going to flip it. At least I think that's what it means, but we'll find out here in just a minute. A little race to the end between the two timers here. Okay, let's go download this image and let's see what happens. Okay, let's call him for a Meridian Flip here. Scope isn't moving. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I'm not sure you can hear this with the microphone here, but it is doing the flip. By George, I think we've got it. Ha! Yeah, I'm sure you guys just don't know how much joy this really is that I'm getting from this right now. Dale and I have been messing around with this for some time. And sure enough, look at that. It is working beautifully. Doing the plate solve. So obviously we got quite a lot of error here. And it just keeps making adjustments. There's a way to turn that off on your computer so you're not constantly getting bombarded with that beeping sound. Alright, we're looking better. We're down to 195 pixels of error. And probably should run one or two more and it should dial itself in. Here we go. This is it. Seriously, guys, I am so ecstatic right now. I literally am containing myself from jumping up and down and just yelling and, and carrying on and just being all awesome about it. My dog over here is kind of looking at me because she's expecting me to fly or something. I don't know. So let's see, the auto guider's back on again. So that's a good thing. But SGP does seem to be taking a few minutes. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I guess we'll just hit OK.
Okay, so let's talk about the safety limit on your G11. So the factory puts a default on there for what your eastern and western safety limits are. I don't know if there's much rhyme or reason behind it, but you have to make sure that it's set for you. And if you go to the Gemini 2 site, it's very specific, you know, very important to set your safety limits. And your safety limits are going to depend upon the size of your scope, the length of your scope, all the factors, camera, filter wheel, whatever you may have on it. So when you first get your Gemini and you're setting it up, go ahead and install all your equipment on it and everything. So your filter wheel, your camera, extension, your you know, if you've got a moonlight focuser or some other automatic focuser, you got to put that on there. You know, of course, balance and weight it, which isn't going to make a big deal, but obviously to keep your stuff from crashing down or anything, just go ahead and put your weight on and get everything ready. And then what you want to do is rotate your RA, and with the scope on, and I don't have my scope on here, probably should have, but put your scope on, and what you're going to do is check it to see where your equipment's going to line up. So you know, if you got a long refractor on here, like I do, with it's an ED127, very long refractor. It's got a moonlight focuser on the end of that, and then a field flattener, and then I've got some extensions or spacers in there, and then I've got the filter wheel, and then I've also got the camera on the end of it. So the filter wheel is the biggest concern that I wind up having, because it extends so far down. Let me look up here. It extends so far down, and it's like actually up here. But then as you come around, I have the potential of hitting the leg, or in some cases, getting very close to hitting the Gemini 2. So the factory defaults, it wasn't working for me. Now yours may be, if you're using an SCT, or if you're using like a small refractor, a wide field refractor, like a 70 or 80 or a 60. You're probably not going to have as much of an issue. And if you have the RA extension kit on it, then yeah, you could potentially go all the way through the Meridian without having to do a Meridian flip. But in the case of my 127, I don't have that option. Again, because I tend to come down and hit the leg with the filter wheel. And of course, it depends on where I'm aimed in the sky. So in your control panel, or your hand controller, once you've loaded everything down, you can just simply rotate it and see where and right there, you hear that little chirp. And if you try to go past it, it'll tell you that your safety limit has been reached. And it goes a lot further past that at factory settings. And again, you don't want your equipment to crash into it. So you can set your safety limits from the hand controller. And if you go into your menu, go to mount, there we go, and go to limits, you'll see there what your limits are. So you have an eastern and a western position, and then you have a western go-to limit. So for my particular case, I'm at 98 on my eastern, and then my western limit is at 100, and that's what I had set in order to keep from crashing into the leg or into the control panel. The western go-to limit is what I set mine to was 2.5, and for some reason it comes up 2.05, but that's fine. And you want to make sure that you're actually setting this in your hand controller, and when you go to hook up, if you're going through the web browser, it should pull it in from the hand controller from the Gemini 2. And that's pretty much it. So there is a way to set this with your equipment on there, so you're not having to guess. And it is, you know what? I can't remember exactly how to go in and do it, but I think it's to set safety limit here. And I'll give you a link to the Lismondi YouTube channel, and it will describe and show you in detail. It's a very quick video on how to set your safety limits. So with your equipment loaded on there, you can rotate up to where the safety limit is and set it to where it'll be permanent. And then of course you always want to make sure that it's actually back into your keypad, just to verify that it's in there, and put it on the keypad. So give me just a minute. I'll be back in a second, and we'll talk about the settings in SGP.
Okay. So in SGP, for your Meridian flips, you have to go into your equipment profile, choose your scope, and go into telescope. And in the telescope, in order to do the auto Meridian flip, you have to check it, make sure it's checked, and then go into set. Now in this point, you want to click on auto center after Meridian flip. You can check on wait for Meridian, and again, if you just hover over it, it'll tell you exactly what it is. So if your flip is less than the next exposure, then the sequence will actually wait until the Meridian flip to start another image. So if you've got 3 minutes left before your Meridian flip, and you've got a 5-minute exposure, it will hold off until it goes through the Meridian flip. And it does keep track of it. Over here under your telescope, if it was connected, it'll give you your current RA, your current deck, and then it'll give you a time to peer flip, and it's a countdown. And then right here, it actually gives you what time it will actually make the flip, or that your object will hit the meridian. So the other night, on Friday night, it was showing 12:04 a.m. and at 9 o'clock it was showing 3 hours 4 minutes, and it just counts down. So you can see, you can keep track of it, of when your flip's coming up, especially if you're, east balanced heavy and you have to physically move your weight, which is what I had done the other night. I just monitored. I went and watched TV, and at 11:55 I came in here and just watched where it was at, waited for the last few images to load. It did the flip, and I just immediately went out, grabbed the weight, and swapped it to the top of the OTA so I could be back to east. Up here on your options, minute past meridian flip. So mine is set for 15. And this basically says, set the number of minutes past the meridian that the telescope will attempt to perform an automatic meridian flip. Now, this is not arc minutes. This is actually time. So 4 minutes in time. And it'll tell you, whoops, let me try. Let me try to get back on there so you can actually read it. There he goes. All right. So for every 1 degree past the meridian is 4 minutes. And if you set it to a negative, it'll flip the telescope prior to the meridian. So depending on where your safety limit is set to is going to depend on what this setting is going to be. So my eastern, which is set at my western is set at 100 degrees. It goes just past the meridian, and I think this is actually like 20 or something like that, but I set it for 15 minutes. So I can track just past the meridian by 15 minutes, and then what will happen is it'll go ahead and go through its meridian flip once it hits that. What, 3 minutes or 3 degrees past the meridian, a little over 3 degrees past the meridian, in order for it to almost 4, I guess, almost 4 degrees before it'll go ahead and do the flip, which it does successfully. So SGP will actually estimate all this out for you, and the time to pier flip, along with the actual time it will perform the pier flip, factors in all this information, which is a good thing. So you don't have to sit there and worry about it. So make sure that you're set up and you got your use all the flip. There was something else I think I wanted to show you too. Maybe it's in the framing mosaic wizard. Yeah, it is actually. So just as a for instance, when you're doing your framing and mosaic wizard and you're setting it up, let me close that. If you're starting on the east, obviously, of imaging, so it's going to give you the image as you're going to see it from the east. Now, when it performs the meridian flip, SGP automatically, I believe, reverses this picture, and then you will, this will be reversed, and unless you have a camera rotator, the image is going to be reversed. So it plate solves to the reverse side. Now, bearing that in mind, one of the people I was talking to, they were having an issue where it wasn't, well, oh god, I total blank here. It was not doing the plate solve. It wasn't plate solving. So if you go back into your equipment profile manager under your plate solve, and this should already be generated and ready, you want to change your attempts to center. The number I go with is 6 times. So it'll attempt to plate solve 6 times, and obviously it never plate solves immediately. So it usually goes through 3 iterations, 3 times in order to center it. So the first picture will be off by I don't know, like 6,000 pixels or something, and then it will adjust the scope to try to get it, where the plate solve says it's supposed to be compared to the image, and then it may come down to, like, say 300 pixels. It'll be off, and it'll make another adjustment, and then it'll dial in to where it's supposed to be. And you're setting the error of how close you want to be, back on your target, and I've set mine for 60 pixels. Now, these numbers I got from, I believe, was Chuck, from Chuck's Astrophotography, when he was showing how to set up SGP. I just went with his, and it seems to work just fine. Uh, I've never gone up 6 times past attempts in order to locate something or get a plate solved. So 6 seems to be a good number, and 60 pixels seems to be a good number. Now you could obviously lower this, if you want it absolutely almost perfect. I don't think it would go down to 0 pixels, but you could probably go down to 50 or 40, perhaps. I don't know. I haven't attempted it. To me, 60 always seems to be well within reason of it getting lined back up again. So make sure when you're on your plate solve tab, uh, you definitely want to go more than once or twice. At least in my experience, only once or twice of trying to solve. Again, 6 seems to be a good number. I've never gone over 6. So those are the settings that I have in SGP, and again, they seem to work. I, as far as your safety limits, don't copy me exactly, unless of course you're using an ED127 with a moonlight focuser with the extension, or using a Explore Scientific field flattener with the, what is it, 18 I think millimeters of spacing, and a ZWO filter wheel and an ASI 1600 camera. If you are doing that, I would say go with my settings in the hand controller for your safety limits and your Western go-to limit, and then use the same settings that I'm using here in SGP.